Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here today. My name is Denise. I'm also known as heywigsister on Instagram and Facebook. Today we're going to work on a wig and make it our own, or rather make it my own. I'm going to show you some things that I'd like to do to this piece to make it look more realistic and more wearable for me. Some of these things maybe aren't the things that you would do. So I'm here to give you just an example and teach you some tips and skills, very simple things that anyone can do. So if you have a wig currently that isn't perfect for you, or maybe you'll make a purchase in the future and these tips will come in handy, then stick around. All right, let's get started. So the first thing is this wig, I need more of a pronounced part line. Now, this one has an incredibly narrow part. One of the most narrow parts I've actually seen in these ready-to-wear wigs. I've seen them more narrow and budget-friendly, but you can see there's not a lot of space right there for you to part. And so it's going to be really, really critical for you. I'm just gonna readjust this since it slipped off. Really critical for you to make sure you get that part perfect, because you don't have a lot of wiggle room. And before I take heat to it to set that part, or before I start plucking it, I really want to make sure it's where it's supposed to be, smack dab in the center of that monofilament. I'm going to show you something real quick before I put it back on. Because if I don't, then at some point I'm going to notice that I can actually see the seam on one side or the other of this. And that's not going to be my preference, especially once I pluck it a little bit. So on a narrow, densely knotted part like this that you can't see very well, one of the things I like to do is I like to put my finger right in the middle of that part so that I can take my rat tail comb and I can draw right down the center of it, and I can see it a little bit better with my finger in there to make sure I really have that part centered. You know, a lot of these wigs come with a wire part line or even a full monofilament. And in that case, it's not as critical that you do this right, but I want you to see something. Do you see that right there? Let's see if I can get it. It's so hard to do this in my phone. You can see, hold on guys, I'm gonna readjust this. I'm gonna do it down here and then I'll lift it up. All right. You can see the seam right there. Do you see that seam right here? That's because I'm not right in the center of that part. So I'm going to come back to it and I'm just going to re-part it again, and I'm going to pull some of that hair. It's a real skill to do this on video when I have to hold it up so the camera can see it. So then now I can't really see that seam because I've moved it over a little bit. So that's the first thing that you want to do, is really work to make sure that you've got that piece parted where you need it so that you cannot see that seam. So that's step one. Now, because this doesn't really want to lay perfectly on either side, I had to shift some of the fibers over. I'd want to take a hot comb to it just gently to really coax them so I can really see that part line. So I'm going to spray just a little bit of heat protectant on it. I'm just using John Renault Heat Treat. I've had this since I first started wearing wigs. I use hardly any at all. And so this stuff is going to last me forever. So I don't want to get it too wet, but I definitely want to protect those fibers. Now this is a heat-friendly piece, so I can take regular heat to it. Now this hot comb doesn't have temperature settings. It just has numbers 1, 5, 10, 15, 20. And so I'm going to try to set it between the 5 and the 10 because I don't want to use too much heat on this. And I'm not trying to, you know, like fix an old wig that's got damage or anything like that. So I'm just going to use it on a very low setting, because really right now I just want to separate those fibers and make sure that they go one side or the other of that part, that I don't have any wanting to spring back, which will make my plucking job harder. Now the next thing, you might feel once you get that part set that you can see plenty of that monofilament, and you could move straight on to the powder if you wanted to. For me, I want to just pluck just a little bit of the part line so I can see it a little bit. So basically, you're just going to try to take one piece at a time and just kind of go along the part line. It is very easy to over pluck a part line, so just go slow and put it back on your head periodically so that you know that you're getting just enough and not too much. So I'm going to take a moment and I'm going to pluck this a little bit.
All right, friends, I'm just going to show you a little bit of what I did. I'm going to speed this up a little because it's boring and it won't take long for you to get an idea. I cannot stress enough, be cautious. Try to grab only one fiber at a time so that you're not pulling too many at once, risking tearing the monofilament. If you do one at a time, it should be fine. I also strongly encourage you to put your wig on periodically to make sure you're not over plucking. It will not look over plucked in your hand here. You'll see a different you'll have a different perspective on your head. So maybe pluck 5 or 6, put it on your head. I know that seems tedious, but you can't put the fibers back, so trust me.
All right, I am done plucking, and this is the hair that I got. You can see it right there. So that's the hair that I plucked out of the part line, and look at how much better that looks, you guys. And a little bit of makeup on that's gonna make it look perfect. Okay, so the next thing is sometimes it can also be helpful to pluck a little bit on the hairline. I did just a little bit of plucking right there to give it a little bit more of a natural look. You know, when you look at people's hairlines, they often, and if you get random hairs like this that just want to hang in your face, don't hesitate to just pluck them out. If I can grab it. Sometimes you just, they're tied in there funny and they don't want to go along with the rest of the hair. I just pull them out. And if I'm feeling like the hair is really not matching up in the front, maybe it's there's some pieces that are more densely knotted, you can pluck a little bit out of the hairline as well. Sometimes even just that little bit of plucking will make all the difference in how the hair lays on one side or the other of that part line as well. So that was step 1. Now, step 2 is to take a little bit of heat to kind of set it, make sure that the hair is all hanging the way that I want it to, and maybe even to give it a little bit of lift in the front. So let's give it just a little bit of lift here. So I'm going to take this hot comb. I'm going to look in the mirror so I don't burn myself because I can't really see very well. And I'm just going to, you know, give it a couple of combs back, and then I'm going to hold it. What sets a heat-friendly synthetic is the cooling process. So anything you do to your wigs, whether it be adding curl to them, straightening them, getting lift in them, you have to wait for it to cool before it will set. So whenever you take heat to get lift, hold it until it cools and then see. Guys, look at that. I mean, it's not fully done, but what a difference that little bit made in getting a little bit of lift in the front. It really won't take much. I'm also wanting to be careful that I don't burn the lace. So I'm being very careful to sort of start back a little ways so that I don't singe that lace. Now, for the purposes of this video, I'm going just a little bit faster than I normally would probably go, and I would probably hold that just a little bit longer so that I can really get the effect I'm going for. And because I started with the heat really low on this, it may not be high enough for what I'm trying to achieve. So I'll just do this a few times. I'll see how it goes. And if it's not quite working, I might raise the heat on it. As long as I'm not going above the heat. I think they said this is safe up to 300. I can't quite remember. I'm definitely well below that. But you can already see that it's not hanging in my face nearly as much. So I think between the heat I just took to it and the plucking, that is making all the difference. This is already so much better than it was. I almost don't really need to put the makeup on because I'm not super sensitive to knotting, but let me just show you because it does make a huge difference. Right. Again, any makeup, you can go to the dollar store and pick up some powder there. You do not have to spend a lot of money on this. And as far as color, I would just go with something slightly lighter than your skin tone and the makeup that you typically use. I've had this powder for years and years, and I don't even use loose powder anymore, but put some on. Oh, and the brush. I love this brush. I think it makes all the difference. You can use any makeup brush, but I love this one because it makes putting makeup on a part so much easier, because all you have to do is go like this, swipe it back. Hard to see. I got it on the hair. I know I can't see in my camera, in my phone here, but you're going to get the idea. And see, I've got a stray hair here. I'm just going to pluck it right out. Oh, wow. This is really hard to see. And it's okay if you get a little bit on the hair, you can clean that off. It's just powder. And then if you want some on the lace, because, you know, if you can see the knotting and it bothers you, just do the same. So one other tool that could be useful is a spoolie. I'll make sure to link everything that I have in the description. A spoolie can really help. So if you get some on the hair, sometimes just taking a spoolie and doing this, I'm trying to be careful not to pull too much of the hair, but that can help really set that powder into that part line and clean it off any of the hair around it. If you got a lot, I mean, you could take a Q-tip and some water or a little bit of makeup remover, you know, whatever will work out best for you. But a spoolie can also be really great for those knots on the hairline. If you just kind of get in there and do this, I'm not doing it hard, I'm not damaging the lace. But what that does is it really sort of, I don't know, softens up the knots a little bit so they don't look as rigid and they don't look as obvious. So whenever you have a wig that has too visible of knots in the front, I want you to try a couple of things. I want you to try plucking a few hairs out, not many, but sometimes the knots, there's just too much hair. You can see how this is not densely knotted. If this were really densely knotted, you'd really see those knots a lot more. Plucking out a hair here and there will help with that. Putting a little bit of makeup on those knots, again, will help. It blurs them. It doesn't completely remove them, but it blurs them. And then using a spoolie. And that is how you can take just a few simple tools and no previous styling skills to try to make a wig your own. This is a learning process, you guys. You're not going to get this overnight. It's not going to be easy in the beginning. Well, if you're lucky, it might be, but for the vast majority of people, it isn't. And every time you try to do something to a wig, it's so nerve-wracking because you don't want to ruin it. You spent your hard-earned money on it. But I really do think that over time, I'm not scared at all to pluck a part line anymore. I've done it so many times, it doesn't scare me at all. I know how to do it. Some of this is just practice makes perfect, you know what I mean? So you had to desensitize yourself to wearing wigs, or maybe you're still in that, where every wig looks wiggy on you because your brain doesn't know how to process what it's seeing. Likewise, you get yourself a little desensitized to wigs, and then you got to desensitize yourself to the fear of making them your own. But I really, really believe that the more you embrace the journey, and guys, it's a journey, not a destination, the easier it will be. When our minds are rigidly set on, you know, having this expectation that wigs are going to be a perfect replacement for our hair, I think we set ourselves up for a lot of disappointment. And so that's the point of the video, these Tip Tuesday videos I do, and the videos I do where I teach, or why I add so much teaching to my reviews, is because I just want to help you get there. I was where you are. I really was. I cried so much in the first months. It was so hard. And now it's just fun because I've learned that it's a journey and I've learned how to have joy on the journey, and I hope you will get there too. Thanks for watching, you guys. I'm sorry I took a little longer at the end here, but I just have a feeling in my heart that a few of you are out there, probably you've already cried today about this. You're not alone. And if you ever need someone to talk to, you can set up a video or phone call with me. I have a a calendar that is available for people to schedule time on. I'll make sure it's linked in the description, and I'd be happy to talk with you and just encourage you. And you know what? Sometimes just talking to another person who wears wigs and has hair loss, that's just what you need. So thanks for watching, guys. I love you all so much. I'll talk to you later.